And welcome to the United Nations here in New York, New York. I'm Mark Anderson, roving editor for American Free Press. This is AmericanFreePress.net. As I learned yesterday, observing firsthand, exclusively among alternative media, the United Nations Arms Trade Treaty, which has been worked on from March 18 to March 28 in this latest round, ran into a major roadblock when Syria, Iran, and even North Korea spoke out resoundingly and loudly against the final consensus and adoption of this treaty. The treaty was last worked on in July of 2012, and it got its proverbial pants caught on a nail at that time too. So they had another session, they tried to finalize the Arms Trade Treaty, and due to the dissent of those three nations, that final consensus, so much hoped for, was not reached. At any rate, what delegates were telling me, and still are telling me, as the weekend comes and as we get into April, is that the General Assembly of the United Nations is probably going to take this thing up, even though the impanelment here, the committee working on it, all the delegates, did not reach that unanimous consensus they hoped for. The nations that are rebelling against this treaty for various reasons don't want the General Assembly necessarily to consider it, but a lot of those who favor it, such as Great Britain and many others, want it to go to the GA, the General Assembly, and so does the United States delegation. So that's the big thing to watch for, is just how and when this will go to the General Assembly, if it goes at all. American audiences, particularly AFP readers and fans, are going to want to call the U.S. Senate ahead of time, of course, and to make sure that if and when this treaty makes it to the Senate for possible ratification, that they vote against it, if for no other reason, to buy more time to study the ambiguous details of the treaty even more. Some of those ambiguities are, it's not clear among delegates whether weaponized drones would be covered in the 7 or 8 categories of weapons under the treaty, nor depleted uranium munitions, which have caused so much suffering throughout the world, in combatants and non-combatants alike. So those are big hanging questions, as well as the status of the treaty itself, as I have found. Now, the big things to watch for besides that are exactly what's in the treaty. Some of what we know is that while patriots around the country worry that it might cover light arms and small arms and ammunition in such a way that would affect the Second Amendment, a lot of delegates and non-governmental organization people, NGO people here, deny that it would affect domestic arms policy and that the Second Amendment, they say, would be left alone and not threatened. Others have their doubts due to the thinking behind the treaty and the way that the treaty is portrayed as a floor and not a ceiling, as the delegates say, meaning more could be added to it as it goes along. So those are big things to watch for. The evolution of the treaty, whether it goes to the Senate, contacting the Senate to oppose it, to buy more time, and these and many other issues will be reported by AFP in the near future in hard copy and on this website regarding this all-important treaty. I'm Mark Anderson, reporting for American Free Press, and many say that this is a very twisted organization here at the United Nations, and that it's ultimately, in the long run, after the domestic gun rights and the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens, particularly in America. And they have a statue here, as we'll try to show, that shows, you might say, or symbolizes those twisted views.